Team out in Phoenix. They get going tomorrow night a little after 6 o'clock.
That's right. Our Scott Eisberg joining us live tonight from Phoenix with much more. Scotty?
Hey, good evening, Ashley and Dean. Yeah, if you heard a it wasn't the tumbling tumbleweeds out here in the desert. It was the collective sigh from South Carolina fans because Sindarius Thornwell, their star, was back today. He was back on the court. He was back in the press conferences. He was back with his team after flirting with a flu bug over the past 2 days. His temperature was up. His hydration was down. But Sindarius is good to go, and that is good news for South Carolina. Let's take a look at some of the video from today. The Gamecocks practicing on the court one final time. They were the first team out there today, and that was a big deal to have Sindarius, because let me tell you, this place is huge, monstrous. 76,000 fans will be in there. The sight lines are quite bizarre to see, but for this workout, it was interesting to see. This team was loose. Frank Martin doing interviews on the PA system, fans getting to see their team play for the first time in this massive atmosphere. Plenty of fans out there. We talked to a group from Goose Creek. They said it's 28 years in the making. I said, why 28 years in the making for you guys? They said, our son is 28 years old. We said from the day he was born, we would be out here. For all involved, it was a dream come true today to have it all come to fruition with this team in the Final Four getting ready for tomorrow.
If you don't dream about whatever it is that you do in your walk of life every day and trying to compete to be the best at it, then it's never going to happen. And if you dream it and you're not willing to work for it, it's never going to happen. Sometimes you dream it and you work every day and it still doesn't happen. But you know what? Life becomes a whole lot of fun because you're fearless of your dreams and you're fearless of the work. And that's what I've tried to do every single day.
It's great, man. The feeling of being here and, you know, everything that comes with it. And, you know, it's great, you know, for the fact that, you know, we've been counted out, you know, every step of the way, and, you know, nobody believed that we would be here, and the fact that we're here and we're playing, you know, is just a great feeling.
Those dreams have been long-lived for both Frank Martin and Sindarius Thornwell. Of course, Thornwell was motivated this year by being suspended early in it. He said this means so much more to him now. He was able to refocus with that suspension. And Frank Martin, what a life he's lived. He was a bouncer at a club in Miami. He was a math teacher. He was a high school basketball coach. All the time waiting and dreaming of coaching in a Final Four. That dream will become a reality tomorrow night at about 6:10 in the East. For now, live in Glendale, Arizona, I'm Scott Eisberg. Dino and Ashley, I will send it back to you.
Scotty, it is Question Friday, so I have one. Explain to people, explain to us. Let's go. Explain to people, explain to us, how is this court set up inside of that huge dome? Is it right in the middle of what would be the 50-yard line, or is it down towards the end zone?
Nope, right in the middle of the stadium, Dino. When you walk into the stadium, it's like walking into the football stadium. Obviously, a basketball court isn't 100 yards long like a football field. It is smaller, but it is set up like a stage. I don't know if you've ever been to a concert in the round, if you will, where the stage is kind of elevated in the middle and everyone's around it. That's kind of what it's like. It's actually got to be a little unnerving for players. If they're diving for loose balls and they go a little too far, you know, usually they would jump into the crowd. Here, you're jumping into about a 5-foot hole down to the ground. So it's an interesting setup, but I would call it a stage in the round right in the middle of University of Phoenix Stadium. Very similar to any Final Four over the past 10 or so years when they've been holding them at football stadiums. But like I said earlier on the radio, I was talking to our buddy Bobby Harton. It's a perfect setup because it's one for the masses. If you played this at a 15,000-seat stadium, these tickets would be $1,500, $2,000. The corporate companies would eat them up. Here, it's not like that. A normal person could shell out maybe $100 and get in here because there's 76,000 seats open for this game.
All right, Scotty, by the way, a basketball court's 94 feet long, 50 wide. Just want to let you know.
Thank you, Dean. Are you like Norman Dale and Hoosier? Should I have gone in there and dropped the tape measure to make sure it was 10 feet high?
No, but I will tell you this. After watching Frank Martin for the last couple of weeks, I don't know if I've been as impressed with a college basketball coach, maybe John Kress, going all the way back to the 90s, of how this guy motivates and how he communicates. So no Norman Dale needed.
No Norman Dale. And Dean, you could listen to Frank Martin and run through the wall of our newsroom, because then maybe we'll get our new newsroom faster.
There you go.
We actually did throw somebody through a wall one time. But anyway, Scotty, thanks so much.
And whether you're making Naga, that game in Phoenix on Saturday, but this evening, Scott Eisberg is live there with pre-game preps. Hey, Scotty.
Good evening, Ashley, from the Valley of the Sun, where it is dark and windy tonight in the desert. Actually, a perfect night. It was a little hot outside today, about 90 degrees here in the desert. Did not matter for us, did not matter for the teams inside the University of Phoenix Stadium. All 4 teams practiced. All of those teams closed practices today. Tomorrow they will practice in front of fans and media. But today the big story for South Carolina, Sindarius Thornwell. He did not practice. He is their star. The SEC Player of the Year was under the weather back at the hotel. Much more on that coming up in sports. But overall for USC, it was really about the magnitude of the situation. Getting here to Phoenix, realizing they are in the Final Four, and realizing they have to play in this monstrosity of an arena, and they have to shoot in there as well. It's very different from the normal gyms and stadiums they play in, but they are ready for this big-time challenge.
It was cool. It was cool just to see how, huge and large the stadium was, but at the same time, it was hard at first. Just the depth perception that you had, shooting at the basket, you seemed like it was never ending behind the basket, but we got used to it, and after we got some shots up, people were able to make shots. After you get over the whole, glitz and glamour of it, you realize that, we're here for a reason, and we're not here for a vacation. We're not here to just be happy that we made it. We're here to try and win the whole thing.
It was interesting seeing the guys out there today shooting balls, and listening to them. It's like, God, it looks different. But we'll have an opportunity to shoot some balls in here again tomorrow. It'll be fine. Kids are players, man. We go out to a park right now and play on 8-foot rims. First couple seconds, it takes a little while, and eventually everyone adapts and shoots the ball in the basket. I know this, Gonzaga and us, neither one of us has an advantage with that one. We're both going through it for the first time.
Both teams are playing in their first Final Fours here in Phoenix. 2 great coaches, 2 entertaining guys. We will hear much more from them coming up in sports. And as for that stadium, we weren't allowed to see practice today. We will tomorrow, but we got to see the stadium right after practice. Darren Stoltzfus will give you a tour of the University of Phoenix Stadium. That coming up later on in sports. But for now, live in Glendale, Arizona, Ashley, I will send it back to you.
All right, Scotty, good to see you. Thank you.
Chevrolet on Rivers Avenue.
Good evening from the desert. Nightfall here in Arizona. As the wind's picking up, we conclude our day 1 coverage of the Final Four out here at the University of Phoenix Stadium. South Carolina practicing today, but doing so without their star, Sindarius Thornwell, the SEC Player of the Year, under the weather, back at the hotel, getting fluids with a temperature, not practicing. Obviously, that is the big story. Of course, South Carolina is going to press on whether they have him or not. They believe they will have him for the game against Gonzaga on Saturday, but Thornwell is not only the leader on the court, averaging over 20 points a game in this NCAA tournament. He is their leader in the locker room, off the court. He is the heartbeat of this team. He certainly is their leader. They go through all the motions today without him. They say other leaders picking up the slack, but Thornwell is a major cog to this team. There is no question about it. They need him at 100%. Frank Martin today talking about how much Sindarius means to the Gamecocks.
It starts with courage. He makes all those guys understand that we're good enough. And when your best player accepts coaching like he does, it allows you to coach everyone on your team. And then he gives. He doesn't take. He never comes out of practice. Never. I don't care what drill we're doing. I don't care how many times he's done it in his career. Will not come out of. He only comes out of practice if I grab him and say, "Sin, get out." He won't come out. That's how young players learn.
I know we still want to approach it the same way. At the same time, he's our leader, he's our mentor. With him being gone, we had to make sure that, other guys stepped up when it came to leading. And that's something that Justin and I and PJ had to make sure we did. And Coach did a good job of making his voice heard.
Now, the Final Four, different than all other basketball games. Of course, it is the big stage, but it's also a different stage. These Final Fours all being played these days at big-time NFL football stadiums, large, cavernous arenas where they could cram 75,000 or so fans in. That certainly makes for different basketball, different shooting lines. Darren Stoltzfus takes us inside now of the University of Phoenix Stadium.
Well, welcome into University of Phoenix Stadium. We get our first look at what a basketball court really looks like in a massive football stadium. Remember, this was the home of the College Football Playoff National Championship when Clemson lost to Alabama. This was also the site of the Fiesta Bowl where Clemson beat Ohio State. But look at this court. It's not even on ground level. You got to walk up about 3 steps, 4 steps. You're off the ground and really raised up. And the depth perception shooting really could be an issue. These 4 teams aren't used to this. Now watch where Scotty's going to be about the 3-point line. Look up at that rim. A little different than playing at Colonial Life Arena. And for sure, in the corners where it just extends, this is not like a typical basketball arena. But this is how you do it at the Final Four. The big stage, about 70,000+ people will be here for this one. Game time Saturday locally is about 3 o'clock for the first game, 6 o'clock for the second game. That's about what time it is right now. And there's a lot of natural light flowing in through the ceiling, that tarp right there. But this is what it's like at the Final Four. This is University of Phoenix Stadium. This is the Final Four in Arizona. This is where the Gamecocks will play Gonzaga Saturday at 6:09.
Thank you, Darren. Gonzaga, a pretty darn good team that South Carolina will be playing. 36-1 on the year. Yeah, 36-1. Granted, they don't play in a Power 5 conference, so their conference schedule a little easier, but non-conference, they loaded up. They've got big wins over teams like Florida, Arizona this year. Major conference teams that Gonzaga has beaten. Their head coach, Mark Few, today wins the National Coach of the Year award. This is a team that's been good for a long, long time, but this team is a bit different. This is the first one that has made it to a Final Four.
It's 500% different from the school, how we travel, how we're treated. We have a new arena. I mean, everything is, we have expectations. We're expected to win, and we're expected to advance. Heck, we're expected to get to a Final Four, and if we don't get to a Final Four, it's a disaster, and we're a failure.
The other major news today is North Carolina repealing that HB2 bill, the controversial bathroom bill that pulled NCAA tournament events out of the state. The NCAA president, Mark Emmert, speaking today here in Phoenix. He says the NCAA will now look and see what they will do about future events in that state. That will wrap up day one coverage here in Arizona. I'm Scott Eisberg. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Hey, Scotty, thank you, and we'll be right back after this.
Sponsored by Crew Chevrolet. You've got a friend in the car business. Crew Chevrolet on Rivers Avenue.
Good evening. I'm Scott Eisberg. Sports comes to you live tonight from Glendale, Arizona, the Valley of the Sun. Tomorrow, the Gamecocks will play Gonzaga, but tonight we are talking Lady Gamecocks first. They have been nothing short of spectacular over Dawn Staley's tenure at South Carolina, but there is one thing the Lady G's have not done. That is win a Final Four game. They get that opportunity again tonight against Stanford. Can they put it away? Here's the highlights. Shot for Stanford, 11-1 run for the Cardinal, up 23-15, but back comes South Carolina. Second half, 33-32 Stanford. It's Bianca Cuevas Moore sinking the three. It's a 15-4 Gamecocks run. Gamecocks up 2. More in the fourth quarter. Brianna Robertson to Alana Smith, who doesn't hesitate, drills the three for Stanford. It's a South Carolina three-point lead, but that's when South Carolina takes off. Kayasha Harris drives, pulls up, and hits the shot. 56-58. Gamecocks then, one last chance for Stanford to get back in it, but the three is no good. Alicia Gray comes up with it, throws it down court to a wide-open Bianca Cuevas-Moore, and the Gamecocks are playing for the national title. 62-53, USC wins, and they are on to the finals.
I mean, I'm just speechless. A lot of people doubted us. I've never seen it really come in. But I think our team worked really hard for it.
I feel like the energy was down in the first half. So, I mean, we came in the locker room, we talked about it. We just had to pick up the energy and come out and play our game.
I'm just a freshman. I'm already here. I got 3 more years left, and we made history already.
It's just an unbelievable feeling. All year the goal is to make to the national championship, and to finally being able to accomplish that and play for it is just an amazing feeling.
So South Carolina will now play on Sunday night at 6 o'clock against the winner of Mississippi State and UConn, and of course USC looking for their first ever national title. Well, let's turn our attention now to the men who practiced for the final time today inside the University of Phoenix Stadium, and a big sigh of relief for Gamecock fans because Sindarius Thornwell back with his team. Our own Darren Stoltz is inside with much more on that.
Scotty, a big day inside at University of Phoenix Stadium because today all 4 Final Four teams practicing on this floor for the last time before their Final Four games tomorrow. Oregon on the floor right now, but the Gamecocks, well, they were very excited because the big question, Sindarius Thornwell, it's all smiles for Sindarius, no sign of what he called a body fever and a headache. As for that question of whether or not he could ever have been sidelined Saturday, no.
I was playing. I was going to play regardless. I was going to play. Nothing was going to stop me from playing. Today, my practice is supposed to be limited, but I think they're going to have a pretty hard time getting me off the court today.
He's wired to compete. He said to me last night, man, I feel like I'm letting everyone down. I said, huh? I said, what is wrong with you? Letting who down? The game's Saturday. Be all right, man. But that's just who he is. He feels that our guys practiced, and he was not there to help them. I know he doesn't like it, that the rest of us worked yesterday, and he laid around the bed and watched TV.
Sin getting up shots, soaking it in, preparing for the biggest game of his life, which means he's expecting the best performance of his career.
I know everybody's watching, and, I always believe that big players step up in big games, and when it's a big game, I always know my teammates and the coaching staff always rely on me to step up and make plays, and that's what I try to do.
So on the eve of South Carolina's first Final Four game, all is well with the Gamecocks because, of course, Sindarius Thornwell says he's well. From inside University of Phoenix Stadium, Darren Stoltzfus, let's send it back out to you, Scotty.
Thanks so much, Darren. Tip-off tomorrow, 6:09 p.m. Eastern Time, 3:09 p.m. here in Arizona between South Carolina and Gonzaga. Both of them playing in their first Final Four. And we've got some shocking news just before we send it back to you. Right now, after 3 quarters, Mississippi State and UConn are tied. The winner of that, of course, plays South Carolina. UConn has won 111 straight games, but Mississippi State has them on the ropes. You have to think Dawn Staley and the Lady Gamecocks are pulling hard for the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. Well, that will do it for Sports Live in Glendale, Arizona. I'm Scott Eisberg. We'll see you again tomorrow on Game Day. Before this semifinal game, there were questions, would Sindarius Thornwell even play in it? Under the weather here in Phoenix. He did play. He said there was no excuse. He just wasn't himself, a little tired, but he was 100%. Whatever happened in this game, it doesn't matter. Thornwell's legacy was already left.
It's been great, the 4 years I've had here, from the start to finish. It's been great. I thank everybody for the support, coming in. We never thought we would be here, but we worked every day. We never gave up. Us seniors that came in the situation we was in, we never gave up. We believed in Coach from day one.
That's what it's all about. These kids are great role models. There's a lot of young kids that want to be the next Sindarius Thornwell, Justin Mackey. I don't get to coach them anymore, but they're part of my life forever.
So where do the Gamecocks go from here? Obviously, some main cogs are gone. Then there's P.J. Dozier, who's eligible for the NBA draft. He told reporters tonight he would decide in a few weeks about his future. And then there's recruiting. Obviously, a run like this caught plenty of recruits' eye. Who knows what the future holds for the Gamecocks? Good evening from the Valley of the Sun. Sports comes to you live tonight from Glendale, Arizona, as we prepare for the Final Four. Of course, South Carolina and Gonzaga playing Saturday night at 6:10 in the evening. As for today, all teams practice inside that big UFO behind me, the University of Phoenix Stadium. All practices are closed to the media today. Very important note at South Carolina's practice, Sindarius Thornwell not there. He is sick, back at the hotel. But as for this team, they are loose, they are confident, and they got to talk to the media today. We bring you that right now. With feet firmly on the ground in the Valley of the Sun, the Gamecocks are here as equals, not as Cinderella.
We speak about what we have to do to win. That's what we talk about every single day. And I said, don't be the guy that doesn't do their job to prevent us from having an opportunity of staying here until Monday night. Focus in on doing your job. And if at the end of the day, our job is not good enough, nothing to be ashamed of.
The team's focus on Gonzaga, the focus of the team, the focal point of much of this tournament, Sindarius Thornwell, the star, the heart, the soul of the Gamecocks, however, not here today.
He had a little body temperature last night when we landed, and he was a little better this morning, but I kind of told our trainer, just feed him fluids, do what doctors do, and let him rest rather than stress him right now.
Yeah, of course it was a bit shocking, but at the same time, everyone came out to practice to compete and do their job, and I think we did well.
Thornwell hasn't gotten them here alone. Frank Martin believes he'll be good to go on Saturday, but in the meantime...
We still want to approach it the same way. At the same time, he's our leader, he's our mentor. With him being gone, we had to make sure that, other guys stepped up when it came to leading, and that's something that Justin and I and PJ had to make sure we did, and Coach did a good job of making his voice heard.
There's no way to deny the size, the spectrum, the magnitude. It's the Final Four for crying out loud. But Frank Martin, the coach who has been larger than life in the media's spectrum, with a way of putting mountains of desert pressure in perspective.
You know what pressure is? 35 students, 27 desks, 18 textbooks, 180 days. That's pressure. You got to educate every single kid in that classroom for 180 days. That's pressure. I don't know. Maybe I'm too dumb to understand what pressure is in sports. I get it. We're playing a real good team. We're playing on the biggest stage of them all. I understand all that. But we got to worry about ourselves.
That really good team that Frank Martin speaks of, Gonzaga. No, they don't play in the SEC or a power conference, but Gonzaga comes in at 36-1 this year. They've never been on this stage before. They have certainly made their way through NCAA tournaments, but they've never played in the Final Four. Their coach, Mark Few, today wins the National Coach of the Year. This is a team that has beaten teams like Florida, Arizona, St. Mary's, among others. They are 36-1, like I said. They have swept through this tournament, and now they've got South Carolina. But what Gonzaga has, certainly that South Carolina has as well, age and experience, and that will help lead them against the Gamecocks.
It's 500% different from the school, how we travel, how we're treated. We have a new arena. I mean, everything is, we have expectations. We're expected to win, and we're expected to advance. Heck, we're expected to get to a Final Four, and if we don't get to a Final Four, it's a disaster, and we're a failure.
Obviously, high expectations on Gonzaga. South Carolina certainly does not have the expectations that they do from the outside, but from the inside, they believe they are not a Cinderella. They are an equal to these other teams. Of course, South Carolina comes in as the lowest seed, the 7th seed, so they will be the underdog in any game they play. The other two teams in the Final Four, Oregon and North Carolina, speaking inside as we speak right now. We hope to bring you them at 11 o'clock. But for now, live in Glendale, Arizona, I'm Scott Eisberg. I'll send it back to you guys in Charleston.
Scotty, can I ask Scotty a question? I'm very inquisitive today.
Sure.
Did you bring your sunscreen?
Good question.
Dean, well, here's the deal. Yeah, I did bring the sunscreen. The only problem, I didn't wear the sunscreen. As my wife always says, the sunscreen doesn't do good for our 3-year-old unless you put it on. I made the mistake of leaving it in my hotel, so that baby sunscreen that I have, the 50 SPF for this beautiful skin, that's back in Phoenix.
Thank you very much. You know, it's just a simple yes or no question with him.
You need